right, welcome everybody. So today we're actually going to be looking at some homebrews that a number of people submitted from the community. It's going to be a little bit of back and forth, so bear with me as I kind of talk with some of the Twitch community as we're talking through this. But it's more so that way we can have a really good engaged discussion on these different homebrews that are submitted by the audience. So we're going to actually take a look and go over to my screen capture here so we can actually look at the first one. This one is a Barbarian path submitted by the Basement Goblin, who's actually in the chat at Tiber_Asen. Also, they are the Basement Goblin on TikTok, so make sure you check them out. But we're looking at the Path of Tranquil Fury. So this one I kind of skimmed a little bit. They have some spell casting. I believe it's a Barbarian class just because it's a path, but we'll find out here in a little bit. Like I said, I skimmed, but didn't really get too much in depth. So we have Barbarians that master some mental training. The path is difficult for some. Barbarians has to demonstrate some self-control, never fully going into their madness. Okay, so these are Barbarians that are going to be a little bit more organized, and hence why they have spellcasting, which is an interesting kind of change of pace from your normal Barbarian, just because of the fact that obviously Barbarians typically don't cast spells, unless you have like some other weird kind of paths, like the one that's kind of coming to mind right now as I move my screens around is actually the Wild Soul Barbarian has some kind of weird spellcasting mechanics, which is kind of cool. But when we look into the spellcasting, I might actually bring up the base Barbarian here on the screen as well later on, just so you guys can see it. But we'll just look at this right now so we can compare. We'll then compare and contrast. But third level, we get some spell casting, and looks like we're using the Druid spell list, which kind of makes sense. So the Barbarian flavor a lot of times is much more of a primal, therefore a little bit animalistic kind of fighting class, obviously. So kind of works kind of well in that kind of vein if we're like looking at towards like kind of a nature-based Barbarian, which kind of makes sense. So I like that. 2 Druid Cantrips, okay. I'll have to look at the Druid spells as we're going through this, because this could actually be very interesting when we think about this, because first thing I'm already thinking about is like you can't cast spells when you're in Rage, but on the flip side of things, when you're a Barbarian, that's not really a problem if you cast first and then go into a Barbarian Rage, because that's kind of like how the Druid works. So it's an interesting kind of mechanic kind of playing on the wild shape plus the Barbarian Rage, which is interesting to me. Well, I want to dig into this a little bit more as we go. Spell slots. To cast one of the spells, you must spend a spell slot. Yep, we know that. For example, if you're in Entangle, you have first and second level, you can use it. Yep, okay, so basic spellcasting rules here. So we have Wisdom Modifier for Barbarian. That might be a little tricky. I'm seeing some right off the bat. I don't want to get too nitpicky here, but I do see possibly some conflict just with the fact that being a Wisdom Modifier, because you have a lot of competing ability scores within this particular class. There are other classes that have this problem. Arcane Trickster Rogues have this problem. The Eldritch Knight is another one that kind of competes for that same thing. So you've got kind of these, because you have, obviously with a Barbarian, you're going to want Strength, Constitution, maybe Dexterity for your specific, for your AC, for your unarmored defense. Using a Wisdom modifier, and yeah, the actual Conjuration Divination spells make it a very good crowd control class. So, for example, like Druids love to cast a lot of their concentration spells, like a Call Lightning or your Entangles and that kind of stuff, and just drop it, concentrate, and then switch to Wild Shape. This kind of actually might flavor very well with that Barbarian near Rage here. But like I said, the Wisdom, there's a lot of competing ability scores, because even the innate Barbarian kind of competes for Strength, Dex, and Con in of itself. So adding Wisdom to that makes it kind of tricky depending on the kind of build you're looking for. So maybe it might just be kind of a little thin on the resources is what I'm seeing right here. But at the same time, like this is something that like most Barbarians don't get spell casting. So it might balance itself out here anyway. Looks like we have a half caster to 4th level. Okay, that makes sense to me. To kind of keep it from going too crazy. The Zen Rage. Controlling your rage has drastically changed how you use it. 3rd level, your rage now grants you the following benefits when you aren't wearing heavy armor. You have advantage on dex saves and dex saving throws. When you make a melee weapon attack using dex, you get a bonus to the damage roll that increases as you gain levels as a Barbarian, shown in the rage damage column on the Barbarian table. You have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. Okay, alright. Okay, so this is kind of like taking the normal Barbarian rage and flipping it on its side. So Let's actually grab the D&D Beyond Barbarian actually here right now, just because I want to kind of compare and contrast these a little bit, because it sounds like to me we want to do that. Because under normal rage circumstances, it's going to be strength is going to be the basis of your attacks. In the Barbarian rage bonuses. Gosh darn it. I'm trying to get it to do so we can... it's not going to really work. We're just going to have to click back and forth. It is what it is. But we'll... Without making you guys go too crazy, we're just going to click back and forth. So if we go back down... I mean, I believe Primal Path... There is something in here. I mean, obviously you have your rage damage up here, but usually... Strength checks, saving throws, we make a melee... So you basically flip this at 3rd level. But at the same time, it looks like you've also just given it to them. So I worry a little bit about... I mean, it doesn't really... It wouldn't make it unbalanced necessarily, but I just worry about... You should clarify that you're just swapping it. Okay. Alright, so you're just flat out swapping it. That's the thing that I would need clarification on. And if that's the case, getting spellcasting at 3rd level by itself, basically, and just the ability to use dexterity instead makes a little bit more sense. If you're trading this portion of the rage flavor here completely, then yeah, that makes sense. It does make it tricky though, because then you have to actually think about how you would take a barbarian from level 1, 2, 3 without it being wicked underpowered if they make a dex based one just to get up to level 3. It kind of makes it makes it very fudgy, is what I'm gonna say. That's the one thing I'm noticing. It makes it kind of funky. I don't know how it would balance. I don't know if you've tested it yet either, but I'm looking at it and it makes me feel like... It makes me wish that some classes like gave you the flexibility to do exactly what you're trying to do with the Zen Rage. It makes me want it to be a cleric, almost, because like clerics get to pick their thing at 1st level, so then you could actually pick like, oh, I'm not going to get Barbarian Rage, we're going to get Zen Rage instead. Like, that would be great. Where it doesn't come online to level 3 makes it very difficult, and I'm sure you had this problem when you were building this thing. I can imagine, because it's not easy to kind of... Because I've always thought about, like, it'd be nice if the Barbarian could be dex-based. Like, I've thought the same exact thing. I don't know if necessarily a Primal Path solves the problem, because like we just said, the first 3 levels before you actually hit your Primal Path, you're either gonna dump strength as a barbarian and be very like underpowered for what you should be, or you just hopefully start out at level 3. I can't really, if you're specifically gonna want to play a Zen Barbarian, that's the way I look at it. So tempered blows, you train yourself on to hold back, dealing the blow to knock your enemy off balance rather than causing further damage. You can now stun a foe instead of dealing rage damage. Okay. You can force a con save versus your proficiency bonus plus your dexterity modifier, or be stunned until the end of your turn. Okay, so this is an attempt to get Stunning Strike, kind of, with the Barbarian, which, you get a path feature most of the time. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I like it. I just want to compare. We're gonna have to grab Monk now. It's a Dex Con Wisdom focus. Play tested 1 session right before the pandemic hit. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, and so the problem I'm looking at, and I think, and we've said it, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's just that it makes it funky when you like bring in a strength, when Barbarian's kind of set up to have to be a strength-based class up until level 3, so if it's coming as part of a Primal Path, it makes it kind of weird. I think you'd have to like make sure, this could be a good way to kind of like DM at your table, find a way to kind of port it over and make it work and have it start at level 1 as opposed to level 3, especially for the Zen part. But it makes it kind of funky. I want to let's look at base Barbarian again just for 1 quick second. Rage on armored defense. So your rage would just be your Zen Rage. That would be fine. I would allow that as a dungeon master, just flipping it for dex. The tricky part then comes with reckless attack, and there's a lot of other regular base Barbarian abilities that are based on your strength bonus. So I guess you could still flip it with dex and just kind of make it some other ones. But I'm not saying it starts bad. I'm just saying that it's one of those kind of weird situations where I love what this is doing, because I've always wanted to make a dexterity-based barbarian, but it's hard to do because most of the abilities are strength-based. So your first 3 levels, if you don't actually get your Zen Rage, it makes it very complicated. We actually might take this and make this its own separate video, because this is actually a really fun one to kind of break down, because it's very interesting. I like what you have here. It's just that I'm trying to bend my mind in a way to make it work, because I think that this is a good start. If we go to Monk, I just want to see really quick. When do we get Stunning Strike? Trying to remember. 5th level. More gifts. Oh, man. Yeah, 6th level. So, or 5th level, excuse me. So, I mean, waiting until 6th level to get the Tempered Blows. I guess it kind of offsets the fact that it's... the only thing that's tricky is that you can do this every turn. So, it might be a little crazy. Just because of the fact that you can basically Stunning Strike as much as you want. Now, when you get to certain levels of Monk, you can basically Stunning Strike as much as you want to. But it basically... it creates a situation where you can basically do a little bit more. I have to... let's look at some of the other ones for, like, let's go back to Ancestral Guardian. Let's look at Spirit Shield. If you are raging another creature you see and if you take damage, you can use a reaction to reduce the damage to 2d6. Let's look at Berserker. Mindless Rage, you ignore Charm and Frighten. Let's look at Storm Herald. You get to pick a specific aura. Storm Soul. Grants you benefits even when your Storm Aura isn't active. You can get resistance to fire damage, resistance to lightning damage, resistance to cold damage. Totem Warrior, you're picking another totem, so we're not going to get too much into this, but it's mostly kind of a moderate kind of level. Path of the Zealot. Divine Fame. When you're raging, you can re-roll. It must use the new roll. So, 6th level for the Barbarian is... yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome for bringing up the strength-based features. Yeah, it makes it kind of funky because you have to like kind of look at that. So like I would say that this is a great start. It's just kind of, it's almost like you're creating your own. It feels like it should be more of its own class, based on the Barbarian rather than a path. Oh wait, did I miss that? Can only be used once per long rest dex mod number of times. I missed that probably. Oh yeah, okay, that actually works out really well. That works out really, really well, actually. Good point. I like that. We look at Wisdom of the Ancients. So now I'm okay with it. just to clarify, I'm okay with it now. Wisdom of the Ancients. You have mastered spellcasting while raging. You have found some interesting results. You can now add rage damage to the damage dealt to your spells while raging. At the end of a long rest, you can add your rage damage to the spell DC or your spell attack bonus while raging. Oh. Interesting. So is this 2 abilities right here? So you can add your rage damage to damage dealt with your spells, and then you can also add your rage damage bonus to your spell save DC or your spell attack bonus? And is this once or is this just innately forever? That's the question that I have. I mean, Zealous Presence gives you something not too like I would say a similar bonus. Totem Warrior is gonna be hard to figure out. Let's skip that one. Like it's damage resistance, and Intimidating Presence is garbage. I don't know why that even. Consult Experience. You can cast some spells. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's too bad. I would say that maybe, I don't mean, I think this might be a little tricky. So you might be getting into, so let's put it this way. So if we're spell save DC, this might be to make up for that wisdom problem that we were talking about. How we have a Dex Con wisdom focused split, which makes it really tough, and strength depending on how you look at it. It makes it a little bit trickier. I'm gonna say this might be so bad because your wisdom might be really low, but if you have somebody who optimizes wisdom, or like, I mean, I'm thinking of ways that people can try and break them. That's kind of what I do here. This one's kind of a funky one. I could see this working like maybe like at the end of a long rest, you can choose to do either or. Oh, and you get killer. Oh, there's two things here. Okay. We might have too many abilities. So level 10, I think Killer Instinct maybe is supposed to be level 14 because that's usually the next one. So it's not usually, it's usually, it's in the kind of organization that you have, but I think you meant to put 14th level down here. Yep, boosting the spell save DC. Okay, so you don't even have to worry about that part. Okay, so yeah, so it makes up for a low wisdom. I just worry about it's going to outpace your other wisdom casters because they're just going to have this innate bonus. Like, if we go to the Barbarian table and look at rage damage. So level 10, we're talking an extra +3. Let's say if they've gotten to 20 strength at level 10 or pretty close to it, depending on how they're playing. If they're standard array, point by, whatever, they're basically effectively getting what is the amount of a 26 wisdom for this ability. If you think of it in the way I'm thinking about it. So we're taking that wisdom score of +5, but then we're getting in another +3. And then we're adding on your proficiency bonus plus the +8. So we're talking 8 plus 4 is 12 plus another 8. We're talking a 20 spell save DC at level 10. That might be a little bit too much. Might be. I'm like I said, I'm like one of those people that's going to look at this as like, how is somebody going to try and break this? And there is an opportunity to break this particular piece of adding the rage damage bonus to the spell save DC. Unless it's only once. If it's once, fine. If it's just innately all day for every spell you cast, then it might be a problem. So just take that with a grain of salt. I'm trying to, like I said, I try to look at it in ways that people can kind of take it and turn it upside down. And I don't want to make it feel like it's, like I want to help you here. So I'm trying to figure this out. But like you said, like I like where it's going. I like this idea a lot. And then if we look at Killer Instinct, yeah, so just look at Wisdom of the Ancients and see if you can find a way to make that work. Like I said, maybe if it's once a day, or maybe if it's there might be a way to kind of play around with it. I mean, adding the rage damage to your damage dealt while spellcasting is already great. So I don't want to say that. I mean, but it does feel like you need something else because some of the other Barbarian level 10 abilities are much more better. Oh, your 14th level is down here. Okay, so Killer Instinct. You give off an aura that terrifies foes foolish enough to get too close. Select a number of targets within this range equals your Wisdom modifier that can see you. Each creature must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw equal to your or be frightened of you. On subsequent turns, you can use your action to extend the duration of the frightening creature. So this is like your intimidating presence with your Barbarian, or your Berserker here, for the most part. Except instead of Charisma, it's Constitution, which makes sense for what you're trying to do. Makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, it is the same thing, basically. Okay. And then, which I think Killer Instinct is kind of it's underpowered for a Barbarian ability, so I would say almost, I mean, you could probably just get rid of this and it would probably be okay, but I don't want to lose this. I feel like this is you're on a good track here. I think maybe just having a certain number per long rest, because I can see a situation. I mean, the Barbarian's going to have to make Constitution saving throws every time they get hit. So if they're going into the middle of a fight, they're going to have to make a lot of con saves. So they're likely to they're likely to lose concentration but they have a large con save, so they might not lose concentration. It's a very interesting balance. So if they have to like kind of keep re-upping their spells, like I could see where having a 20 spell save DC at level 10 could really get kind of backwards. So just something to keep in mind, you know? And then Tranquil Fury at level 14. Your self-discipline has seen you through, hardening you to nearly all threats. Beginning at level 14, you gain the following benefits while raging without wearing heavy armor. You receive temporary hit points equal to your Barbarian level without wearing heavy armor, specifically. Okay. You receive temporary hit points equal to your Barbarian level plus your Constitution modifier, and you have damage resistance to spells. Okay. Okay. Let's compare. I feel like the level 14 abilities for a lot of other ones aren't so great. Totem Warrior's got like 7 million things. Oh yeah, you can't die. Path of the Zealot. I just refuse to die. I guess with certain things, like if the Spirit Shield gets better as you... Yeah, but it still isn't... Huh. When your Spirit Shield resist damage to type attachers, force damage equal to your student. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so you may drop or change the... Yeah. Virtually every spell available to the path is more. May drop or change Wisdom of the Ancients. It's too powerful. We'll look at this in Killer Instinct over. Virtually every spell available to this path is more something. Yeah, I like where Wisdom of the Ancients is going. I just find that like this little part at the end here makes it kind of tricky. But then, just because it could be a permanent 23, I mean a permanent 20. That's the tricky part. Without having to have like some kind of funky thing like a special plus, you know, figuring out a way to get a 26 Wisdom or something like that. And then this Tranquil Fury. I'm trying to think. I don't think this is a huge deal. My instinct is making me think it might be a huge deal, but I don't think it's a huge deal. Because if you look at the Totem Warrior there, he resists to everything except for psychic damage. So I don't have a problem with that, actually. At first... Oh, yeah. No, that's good. That makes sense. I see that. So I actually don't have a problem with this resistance to damage from spells. That actually, I'm fine with that. Just flat out. And I think it's okay. And I'm fine with actually the 10 hit points. So I actually think that this Tranquil Fury works. I think this really works. Killer Instinct is fine. I mean, it's fine. It's just one of those that, like, for a Berserker Barbarian, it's one of the weaker kind of abilities that they get at the same level. So I don't have a problem with it, paired with, like, the beginning of this, like, Wisdom of the Ancients part. I think maybe just relook at Wisdom of the Ancients. I think finding a way to change this portion, maybe you include Killer Instinct in some way, or maybe something completely green that we're not thinking of and we're just haven't figured out yet brainstorming. I think there's a way that you can make... I like the idea of adding new rage damage to damage dealt with spells, especially when you consider, let's say if it's like Entangle's not the word I'm thinking about it, but there's some other crowd control ones that have damage, or like your Call Lightnings and stuff like that. I like the idea of this being a part of it. Like, I like it. I just think that we need to re-examine this last little sentence here, Wisdom of the Ancients. Otherwise, I like this. And like I said, like, I almost want to say this feels more like it could be its own, like, alternate path for a Barbarian. Not even path, but like an alternate, like, subsystem for a Barbarian if you wanted to do a Dex one. Just because there isn't any options right now. And maybe that's on purpose. And I think it's on purpose because most of their abilities are strength, which I feel like just flipping it for Dex, I actually probably the reason why they don't let you flip it for dex is because dexterity is used for a lot of things, like your armor class, and for a lot more checks in your initiative. So it's tricky because strength's only really for like your carrying capacity, which nobody actually accounts for, unless you have a DM that does that. Athletics and just strength checks and save. So it's like, I still like the idea of a Dex Barbarian. I feel like there's a place for it. I feel like it's something that wouldn't be too overpowered in my opinion. So I like where this is going. I really do. Oh, and specifically, you got to prepare a list of druid spells from Conjuration Divination. That's cool. Yeah, exactly. So, I like where this is going. I like where this is going, bud. Guys, that was the Path of the Tranquil Fury. If you guys like that kind of little breakdown, there's a lot of really cool stuff here, a little bit of stuff to work on. But hey, that's why we do this kind of stuff here on the stream. And kind of just, give feedback, kind of have this really good dialogue and brainstorm. It's a lot of fun. So if you guys want to check that out, make sure you check out the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/bluecollardm. There's a link down in the description below. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, hit all the buttons. And we also, if you want to submit some of your homebrews, you can either do that in the Discord, which is the link down below, or you can actually DM me on Twitter and all that kind of cool stuff. I'll take a look at them there too. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And until next time, happy gaming.